generally, I'm just going to kind of give a pep rally, I guess, in regards to why Bitcoin's exciting and all the exciting things that are happening in Bitcoin. And like I said, I've been involved 3.5 years now, and it's just hard for me when I think back about just how much Bitcoin has changed in the last 3.5 years and how much stuff has happened. It's just mind-boggling the pace at which things are going. So for anybody that's new to Bitcoin and watching this for the first time, the easy ways to get started: number one, get a wallet. Go to blockchain.info and make a Bitcoin wallet. It's really important to differentiate between Bitcoin wallets in which you control the Bitcoins or in which you're trusting someone else to control the Bitcoins for you. And the wallet I use myself for the vast majority of my Bitcoins is blockchain.info. Some other good examples of wallets in which you control the private keys are Electrum or the Armory or the Bitcoin Core client as well. Once you have some Bitcoins, once you have a Bitcoin wallet, you'll need some Bitcoins. There's lots and lots of places to buy it, including Bitstamp, Local Bitcoins, Kraken, Cefello. If you're in the US, Coinbase.com is fantastic. And then there's lots and lots of places to spend your Bitcoins. BitPay.com, I think, has 35,000 plus merchants signed up. The original Bitcoin Store.com. Just yesterday, Expedia.com announced that you can book hotels on their website. CheapAir.com can buy hotels and air flights. BTC Travel has that as well. Basically, a couple years ago, the question is, what can I buy with Bitcoins? Today, the question is, what can't I buy with Bitcoins? So, and the answer is pretty much anything at this point you can buy with Bitcoins. And why is Bitcoin so important? Because this is the first time in the entire history of the world in which anyone can transact with anyone else anywhere in the world, and you don't need permission from any bank or government or corporation. It just works, and there's nothing anybody can do to stop that. And that's thanks to the Bitcoin blockchain. And for decades, computer scientists and mathematicians had thought it was impossible to achieve what Satoshi did with the blockchain. And people always like to say when they hear about Bitcoin, they say, well, that's too good. The governments are just going to shut down. And I always explain to them, I said, the only way to stop Bitcoin is to turn off the entire internet in the entire world and keep it turned off. And that's, I don't really think, a reality at this point. So, and Bitcoin, when I heard about Bitcoin and finally understood it, I realized that it's the best form of money the world has ever seen. And this little slide here has all the properties of what constitutes good money. So it's hard to counterfeit. Good luck counterfeiting Bitcoins. The entire Bitcoin network is busy checking away to make sure that nobody's counterfeiting any Bitcoins. It's scarce. The supply is limited. It's easily divisible, certainly much more easily divisible and down to smaller units than dollars or gold or silver or anything else. It's homogeneous. All Bitcoins are like any other Bitcoin. Bitcoins will last to the end of time. You might lose the private keys, but they'll still sit there on the blockchain for forever. Talk about easy to transport. You just copy and paste and say how many Bitcoins you want to send, click send, and you can send and receive Bitcoins with anyone, anywhere in the world. And you can store them on just about any sort of computing device or even on pieces of paper as well. So Bitcoin really has all the properties that make it absolutely fantastic money. And people are realizing that and starting to use it as such. And like I mentioned a couple of slides back too, when you're using a wallet, make sure that you're using a wallet in which you control the private keys. Make sure you keep those private keys safe and make backups of those private keys. For those that have been following Bitcoin for a little while, we're all aware of what happened with Mt. Gox. And that's an example of people allowing somebody else to hold their Bitcoins for them. And it was a disaster. And a lot of people maybe only are aware of Mt. Gox, but there's actually been a series of events like that in Bitcoin's history. And all of those were directly caused because people were trusting other people to hold their Bitcoins for them. For those that are interested, you can Google Bitcoinica or My Bitcoin or a bunch of other ones as well that have happened in the past. So one of the most important messages I want to convey to people is hold your Bitcoins in your own wallet in which you control the private keys. Don't trust somebody else to hold your Bitcoins for you. Governments are finally starting to pay attention. 3.5 years ago, when I got involved in Bitcoin, it was, for better or worse, it was kind of a dream that Bitcoin would get big enough and important enough in which governments would want to pay any attention. And now we're kind of starting to have the opposite problem. We're kind of scared that government's paying so much attention to this sort of thing. But all in all, Bitcoin's spreading quickly all over the world, and more people are using it. And at the end of the day, it's unstoppable. And this, as this graph shows very, very clearly, um, uh, more and more people are using Bitcoins every day. This graph is the number of users of blockchain.info. Um, this graph is about a month old now. It already has more than almost another 100,000 users compared to what's listed on this graph. So it's just incredible how fast things are progressing in the Bitcoin space. The Bitcoin price as well. This graph again is about a month old, but it's just amazing to see. I've been around the Bitcoin space long enough too, where I remember when reading on the Bitcoin forums when Bitcoin hit $1 for the first time, one single dollar per Bitcoin. And everybody on the forums were saying, "Oh, it's a bubble. It's a bubble. This can't last. It's going to go back down, and this and that." And then Bitcoin went up to $30, and everybody said it's a bubble. And then at $260, everybody said it's a bubble. And then it got up to around $1,100, and everybody was saying it's a bubble. And it's down a little bit from there today. But I think if we wait another 6 months or a year or two, everybody's going to look back and say, "Oh, look how silly those people saying Bitcoin was in a bubble at $1,100 a Bitcoin is." And it's very clear, Bitcoin is really, really gaining traction all over the world. And some examples, Overstock.com, one of the most popular shopping websites in the entire United States, is accepting Bitcoin. Tiger Direct, we just heard the announcement of Expedia.com yesterday, and it's just, the list goes on and on and on. And not just US centric, but in businesses and websites all over the world. And the Bitcoin network itself, and it's really starting to transfer a large amount of money and a large amount of transactions each and every day, to where it's starting to be comparable to existing companies like Visa and MasterCard and PayPal and Discover. And I think we just heard recently one of the top executives of Visa left Visa to go and work for BitPay. The top executives in traditional financial companies are taking note of Bitcoin and looking into this and literally changing their career based on what Bitcoin is up to. And just the number of Bitcoin exchanges around the world is just increasing. Just about every couple of days I hear about a new Bitcoin exchange opening somewhere. 3.5 years ago, there was Mt. Gox, and that was it. There was no local Bitcoins, there was no Kraken, there was no Bitfinex, there was no ANX. None of these other exchanges even existed 3.5 years ago, and now there's more than any one person can even hope to keep track of. And here's a couple of other examples, and I'm sure more and more interesting safety mechanisms and technologies are being developed right now to make it safer for people to use all these different exchanges. And just the whole ecosystem is just growing by leaps and bounds. Just earlier today, one of the pretty famous UFC fighters was tweeting at me, "Hey, how can I get Bitcoin sponsors? I want to be sponsored by Bitcoin stuff." And it's just really, really starting to enter the mainstream consciousness. And there's just more businesses and websites and exchanges and things happening with Bitcoin than any human being can hope to keep track of. And lots of other similar things to Bitcoin are coming out. There's more cryptocurrencies than anyone can shake a stick at. Right now, Bitcoin by far and away has the head start on all these other ones. But who knows? Maybe something better than Bitcoin will come along. And if it does, in reality, that's a win-win situation for all of us, because it means we have something even better than Bitcoin to use. But at this point in time, it really looks like Bitcoin is going to wind up having the penetration all over the world and the market share. And it's what everybody uses. And myself personally, I just have Bitcoins, and I'm just involved with Bitcoin. And talk about the number of startups that are getting involved with Bitcoin. This is just a small example, and there's just more than any human being can even hope to keep track of. And I feel I'd like to apologize to anybody who sent me an email asking for help or advice on certain things. There's just so much going on that it's impossible, despite having the nickname of Bitcoin Jesus. I can't keep up with it all, even though I do nothing but Bitcoin all day, every day. And it's just amazing the amount of money and capital that's flowing into all these Bitcoin startups all over the world that are building this ecosystem. And I think a lot of people are asking, what's the killer app for Bitcoin? Maybe there is no killer app for Bitcoin. Maybe it's the entire ecosystem as a whole, and it's all of these little pieces coming together to form the ecosystem that makes Bitcoin a killer app in and of itself, because the entire ecosystem is available to you once you have Bitcoins and can participate in that. And I think that's what we're seeing with all these websites all over the world coming online to do all sorts of amazing, interesting things with Bitcoin. Bitcoin ATMs, I just heard earlier today, there's another Bitcoin ATM that's going to be right on the Las Vegas Strip. And I'm sure there's one right down the street from where I live here in Tokyo, and there's plans for more here in Japan, and just all over the world. More and more of that sort of thing is happening. I think one of the next big steps we're going to see is existing ATM machines somehow figuring out how to integrate Bitcoin by updating the operating system that the ATM machines are using currently. And I think we'll probably see that happening at some point as well here. But it's just incredible how quickly Bitcoin is spreading all over the world. In every country, people are paying attention. It almost leaves me speechless. Yeah, and again, integration with traditional banks, it's just amazing how quickly this is progressing and how fast this is happening with all these companies getting involved with that. It's just the pace at which Bitcoin is spreading into the traditional financial system is breathtaking. And the mobile apps are just spreading like wildfire as well. 3.5 years ago, when I got involved with Bitcoin, there was not a single mobile wallet. There was absolutely nothing. There were hardly any web-based wallets even. About the only thing there was the core Bitcoin Qt client, and that was it. And it wasn't very user-friendly at all at this point. Whereas now there's more wallets than anybody could hope to choose from. But like I've said multiple times before, please, please, please use a wallet in which you're controlling the private keys, because anytime you're trusting somebody else with your Bitcoins, you're completely at their mercy. And it doesn't mean that they're not necessarily trustworthy people, but you never know what could potentially go wrong. And if you're holding your Bitcoins in a wallet in which you control the private keys, your destiny is in your own hands rather than in somebody else's. So I do think that's really, really important when it comes to the Bitcoin space. And people are starting to use Bitcoins internationally as well to send and receive money with people all over the world. This picture just kind of gives some examples of that sort of thing going on, but it's really happening. People are asking to be paid in Bitcoin. I heard through the grapevine that the #1 request over at Odesk, which is a website that allows people to hire help from all over the world. It's all the people that are doing the work there are begging Odesk, let us receive our payments in Bitcoin. And I think at some point pretty quickly they'll want to be able to do that, and they'll have to be able to do that because so many people are asking to be able to be paid in Bitcoin. And people are using Bitcoin for donations all over the world. If anybody is aware of a charity that hasn't started accepting Bitcoin yet, tell them about bitcoin100.org. All any charity has to do is list Bitcoin as a donation method on their website, and they can get a $1,000 worth of Bitcoins donated to their website. So, and it's great to see all these fantastic charities that are helping people all over the world getting involved and using Bitcoin. So, and micropayments, just all sorts of things. The blockchain technology just allows all sorts of things that wasn't possible before Bitcoin. And we're seeing all these, just brilliant minds all over the world hard at work making this easy for the masses to use. And, here are a couple of our other examples of people that have that in the works. Yeah, game companies, and there's just more stuff happening than anybody could even hope to cover. And Zynga and this and that, and people are doing StarCraft tournaments and betting in Bitcoins on the tournaments and just all sorts of stuff. And, who knows, maybe within another couple of years, some of the default in-game currency is going to wind up being Bitcoin for some of these games. Yeah, just more examples, just so much stuff. Big Points Games apparently is you can buy the virtual goods with Bitcoins. They have more than 330 million users. That's about the population of the entire United States. And this particular company is selling their various game stuff with Bitcoin. Yeah, and here's an example of, people are doing their different esports, and if I was a decade or two younger, maybe I would be involved in that. But there's lots and lots of people who are, and with PayPal or credit cards or bank wire transfers, in lots of countries it's probably illegal to have betting pools or whatever different sports bettings or whatever these kids are up to with this. But with Bitcoin, they can do whatever they want with their own money, and more power to them, if you ask me. And yeah, just all sorts of publications and documentaries and movies and just all sorts of media attention. About 3 years ago, I signed up for Google Alerts anytime there's a Bitcoin news story. And I was so excited every day when there actually would be one Bitcoin news story. And now there's so many new Bitcoin news stories every single day, I can't even read the headlines for them, let alone the whole articles. So it's just amazing how quickly Bitcoin is entering the mainstream consciousness. And I have a couple more slides that I added at the end here that I will pull up real quickly. as well. So again, this is just amazing for me to look at just how many different Bitcoin exchanges. Each single line we see here is a different Bitcoin exchange that's opened. And 3.5 years ago, there was Mt. Gox and nothing else. And now there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds available here. Uh, and it's just amazing. And new ones are coming online just about almost every week, if not almost every day at this point. And then people are building really, really interesting technologies. So I got to hear about this realitykeys.com in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago at the conference there. And I feel like I should plug them because it was such an interesting idea. Go to realitykeys.com and read about it. The super short version is that they publish 2 public keys for any sort of real world event. And when that event happens, they'll release the private key for whatever particular binary outcome happened, for yes or no for that event. And so it allows all sorts of people all over the world to make any sort of Bitcoin contract or bet or any sort of thing that they want based on that real world event. But the owner of realitykeys.com has no idea what contracts people are constructing or what bets people are placing on any sort of topic, and that people can resolve their contract or bet or whatever they want, and nobody other than the parties that are involved in that contract know that it even happened or that the bet took place or anything about it. And it's a really, really, really neat idea. So when you have some time, hop on over to realitykeys.com and read about what they're up to there. Another thing I saw in Amsterdam, and these 2 that I'm showing were the winners of a contest they had there, a startup contest, is a coin prism that allows anybody to make their own colored coin and then transfer them around. It's still in alpha. I don't even think they're in the beta yet, but it was really, really neat. If you have time, go over there, log in, make an account, and then create your own colored coin and see just how easy it is to do that. And I'm sure both of these sorts of websites will be developing very, very quickly that make it even safer and more secure and easy for people to use. And a lot of people don't realize that Bitcoin is about so much more than just money in the form of Bitcoin, but it's also in the form of any other sort of asset. You can transfer around the ownership of whatever sort of physical real-world asset using something called colored coins. And Coin Prism is one of the more interesting websites that's allowing people to do that. And a lot of people, if they're hearing about Bitcoin, it seems kind of abstract, and it's hard to realize, are people actually really using that? And I like to point out to them that, like, yes, people are using that. And you can see that just here in the last, couple of hours, or in the last less than an hour, people have transferred somewhere around $15 million worth of Bitcoins. And you can see right here these transactions growing. These are US dollars worth of Bitcoins. And it just goes to at the rate of somewhere around a transaction or 2 a second. And these are real people sending real amounts of money using Bitcoin to and from people all over the planet. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it or control it in any way. And that's a huge, huge step forward for individual freedom for everybody on the entire planet. Now, anybody can send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere on the planet without requiring permission. And right before your eyes right now, you're seeing it in action happening. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing for humankind. And it's to the benefit of every human being on the entire planet. Bitcoin.com is interesting. We just, for a long time, it wasn't really being made good use of, but actually just earlier today, a new website's up that advertises all sorts of websites that make it easy for people to use Bitcoin. So, and these are just some examples of what's up there. So take a look at bitcoin.com if you want to get started as well. It gets a huge amount of traffic every day just from Google and Yahoo and all the search engines sitting it there. One other thing that I thought was kind of interesting for myself personally is I'm from the US originally, but I think Bitcoin is the start of a global form of money. And it doesn't matter what country you happen to be born in or what country you happen to live in currently, but Bitcoin's for everybody all over the world. And so just recently, actually, I renounced my US citizenship, and I've been a citizen of St. Kitts since earlier this year. And I set up a website called Passports for Bitcoin that allows anybody, by investing some money in the country of St. Kitts, to receive citizenship there. And in St. Kitts, there's no capital gains tax, there's no personal income tax, there's no corporate income tax on income derived outside of St. Kitts. So for people that are interested, it's a really, really a good option. So that's passportsforbitcoin.com, and you can read all about it over there. And I look forward to a day in which people aren't judged or controlled arbitrarily based on what country they happen to have been born on. born into, and we'll just view every human being on the planet as just that, a human being living on the planet Earth, rather than Chinese or Mexican or American or Kittian or Japanese or whatever else. And I think Bitcoin's a huge, huge step towards that sort of progress.